Welcome back to Coach Changemakers Academy. This is Module 6, Closing the Sale, Lesson 2, Discovery Calls and Strategy Sessions. Now, first, I want to talk about the difference between a discovery call and a strategy session. Some coaches and experts will actually use these terms interchangeably, but in my opinion, they are far from the same thing. So let's first break down the difference. First of all, a discovery call tends to be better for identifying if somebody is a good fit for a program, where a strategy session is more about leading with value. A discovery call is also more of a sales call. So, this is going to be quite clearly a process that you're going to use to move somebody into a new product or service, where a strategy session could actually be a standalone offer. Now, it very likely and usually is designed to also lead into some type of product or service, but because of the value you can give in a strategy session, it can be a standalone offer all on its own. A discovery call is great for products or programs that have very tangible outcomes. So, programs that you can associate with a dollar amount as far as a revenue goal, for example. Where a strategy session is a whole lot better for something that's more emotional, that you need to connect on an emotional level with somebody. So, for example, this could be something that has to do with helping their kids through something or helping another loved one. That emotional piece can be a whole lot tougher to address and identify because it's a little different for everybody. So we want the extra time that a strategy session can give versus a shortened discovery call. So logistically, a discovery call is typically 15 to 30 minutes, where I would see a strategy session being more like 45 to 60. So there's more time, and typically a strategy session is used to connect on a deeper level. Now, I want to dive right into the strategy session secrets. And although these are called strategy session secrets, every single one of these can be applied to a discovery call. So they're kind of different terms for a similar idea, but as we just went through, there are specific instances where one structure will work better. But all of these tips that we use can be applied to all of them. So, first of all, let's talk about the filter. Now, we want to be really, really careful on where we're spending our time because our time is one of the most valuable assets we have. In fact, some would say it is the most valuable asset that we have. Okay, we can always make more money, but we're not getting any more time. So, when we filter, we do this for a few specific reasons. One, we want to avoid people that have a low level of commitment. Okay, we know if people get on a call with us and they're not very committed, they're less likely to buy. Even if they do buy, they're not going to be very well engaged in the process, probably. And so they're less likely to get the level of results that we would love to see our clients get. So we want to filter them out right from the start because they end up taking a lot of time and especially a lot of energy. So, second, we want to avoid having people that are underqualified. So, this could be a financial qualification, right? Do they have the financial stability to make the investment in what you're offering? It could be some other criteria. Maybe it only makes sense that somebody has been through maybe a coaching certification before you work with them, or it only makes sense that their business is at a certain level before they come and work with you. So you want to make sure that they're all highly qualified, and so having this filter allows you to avoid having low qualification people or people that aren't as qualified to work with you booking calls with you. And so there's two ways that we can do this. One is my preference is what I call a risk-free strategy session. And we talked a little bit about it last week when we talked about coffee chats. And the way my strategy sessions work is that we jump on a call for 60 minutes and the investment is $147. If at the end of the 60 minutes you find you didn't get the value, I'll push the refund button before we're even off the call. In 4+ years, I've never once had anybody ask for that refund. So, knock on wood, it will happen sometime. It's just a numbers game, but I've been lucky. So, this allows us to use $147 as a qualifier financially to see if somebody is willing to invest in themselves and in my services. If they don't have $147, then they're very unlikely to be able to invest in my other programs. So that's why I like that. But it also ends up being no cost, really, because if they're not happy, they get their money back. So it truly is risk free. So it's almost as good as being a free session as far as the risk and the financial commitment. But you get to raise the bar on exactly who is going to be coming into those sessions. The other part is an application process. Now, I use a questionnaire when people book my strategy sessions so that I still get some additional information about them. But you can go even further and make it a full application process where, based on the answers, you may decide to approve or reject their request for a session. So, one nice thing about the application process is that it really does a great job of making your sessions feel selective or kind of at an elite level. So, if not everybody gets in, you can talk about how you're very specific on who you work with. So that can be really, really good for qualifying. The second step is framing for authority. Now, this is really about making sure that your prospect understands that you're not just getting together for a chat. The authority of this call has to be that you are the expert wanting to help them in a specific area. So, first of all, we want to frame for authority because we get people with a greater commitment. It takes a much higher commitment to say, I would like to book a strategy session with you, or what do you say we jump in a strategy session, versus saying, hey, let's go grab a coffee or let's go chat next week. Okay, it's a big difference. And so we want to be very, very aware of that and use the framework of a strategy session or a discovery call to make sure that your prospect knows this is part of my business. This isn't just us hanging out and we're going to invest $2 to $5 on a coffee. This is us actually spending time getting serious and getting some results. So that's really, really beneficial. Second, they get a clearer context because not only does it feel different being booked for something called a strategy session or discovery call in comparison to going to grab a cup of coffee, but sometimes the context can be a little bit blurry, right? Like you could say going for coffee and they're like, well, okay, we're going to go hang out. We're going to talk. But they might not understand that your intention was to do something with business. But when you talk about this is a strategy session and you outline that process, the 60-minute process, we're going to focus totally on building out a plan for you. It's very clear that it's a business function. And so that way you're going to be able to have people come to you with a higher level commitment and better understanding of the context. And so another way that you can do this, and we sort of talked about this in the coffee chats last week, but you can describe the context of the call in advance. So I would do it in two places. One, when you're booking it, but two, you can also reinforce it at the first of the actual call. So here's an example, and this is the one that we talked about last week in the coffee chat. We said, great, so when I work with people in your situation, we go through a full 60-minute strategy session. At the end of the session, you'll walk away with a clear action plan on how to get that $36,000 per year back into your business. The investment for the session is $147, and if at the end of the session you don't feel you received the value, I'll refund your investment before we're off the call. So it sounds very formal, and it is, but there's no way to mistake this for, hey, let's just go hang out and have a coffee. And so that's when you get people paying better attention. It's like the difference between somebody taking the call while they're walking the dog or going for a run versus when they're sitting in front of their computer screen at their desk, ready to engage, ready to take notes, ready to see progress in their business. Now, the next section is frame for the offer. And this is really important because often we get worried about surprising a prospect with their offer. Now, a lot of people just expect that if they jump on the phone with you, there's going to be some kind of sale involved, and that's great. But other people don't. And more importantly, it can feel really strange to you as a coach, as a consultant, as someone that's having these strategy sessions or discovery calls, to just throw an offer out there and not really be sure how comfortable they are receiving it. So that's really important. So when you frame the offer, it ensures that prospects are expecting an offer. It also avoids any resistance around the sale. So some people will sit in calls as a client or a prospect and say, okay, where's the pitch? When's it coming? Right? And they just kind of sit back and wait. And the problem is that will actually distract them from all the other value you're trying to deliver in the call. It also is going to help you avoid any resistance you have around the sale. Because once they know it's coming, there's no surprise, there's no awkwardness, there's no fear of sticker shock. And so when we frame the offer at the beginning of the call, we first gain the prospect's permission to make the offer. And two, everybody's expectation is clear, so it feels a lot more comfortable. And so here's an example. The way these calls work is we'll take a full 60 minutes to totally focus on mapping out a strategy for you to achieve XYZ, or whatever goal it is. If at the end of the call, I feel like we're a good fit to work together and I feel like I can help you with implementation, I may invite you to join one of our programs, but there will be no pressure either way. Is that fair? And just like that, we've gotten the buy-in. Normally they'll say yes. I've never had anybody say no to me. Again, that doesn't mean they won't someday, but it's been very positive. And so this little piece of permission allows a lot of walls to come down so you can move forward and have an impact in somebody's life or business. Now, the next section is focus on the process. And it might sound kind of strange, but as coaches, as consultants, people in these spaces that really want to help, we find ourselves always trying to focus on delivering value. And sometimes we get distracted. And sometimes that distraction becomes dumping information on people that they're not ready for. And so here's why we want to stay focused on the process. We avoid information overload. I had a situation where I was invited to do a presentation at a real estate office. And I went in, and this is the first time I had done this particular presentation. I hadn't practiced it. I was completely unprepared. So learn from my mistakes and don't do that. But I walked in and I had a 2-hour window. Well, my content was way too heavy. I thought that giving more content, giving more information, that it all equaled to giving more value. What really happened was after the 2-hour window, the entire real estate group started glazing over, like their eyes were glazed over. They couldn't even pay attention. In fact, I made the offer at the end, and the only person that bought was somebody that left early. They were so pumped at what they saw content-wise at about the 2-hour mark that they said, hey, here's my card. I really want to talk to you. And they left. And then the other was probably close to 30 realtors in that room. No one else bought because at that point, I was kicking a dead horse. It actually took away from the sale. So we want to avoid that. And so now in hindsight, if I just gave them a framework to map out the way that I help people achieve certain goals, specifically realtors, they would have been a lot more intrigued and would have been willing to hire me because I sound like I know what I'm talking about, right? When I overdo it, I lose that ability to sound like I know what I'm talking about, and it becomes more about how do they avoid overload. So the other part when you focus on the process is you don't end up having people feel like all the problems have already been solved. Because here's what happens when you give too much information, people think, wow, that was really, really valuable. I'm going to go implement it. And in some cases, they'll say, I don't need to buy this right now because it's free information. You want to make sure that what you're doing is giving them part of the information, but not overwhelming them with all the details. So one process that I like to use is focus on the what. Talk to them about the what. Then you can leave the how for when somebody invests in a program. You get more time, you've got more structure, you get more flexibility, so you can teach those pieces. But if you focus on the what, it's also going to show them enough to reflect your level of knowledge. It also removes the resistance to buy. So not only do people feel overwhelmed with their eyes glazed over and they don't want to buy, they might feel like all their problems have been solved and they don't want to buy. But the other really interesting part is that if they feel like they were just given a whole pile of free information and they learn to trust you as an expert, they're going to look at that pile and say, I really should get through that first before I spend any money. And when that happens, you're just not making the sale, right? The content's been great. You've got lots of resources. That's awesome. But as soon as they think they need to prioritize the free stuff over investing is the moment you start to lose them. So focusing on the process takes care of all these issues. And so we want to frame the process at the beginning. And we saw this in the example before in the coffee chat where I talked about it being 60 minutes, it being about mapping out the process for someone to have an actionable plan to achieve their goals, right? So map that out. But there's also another version that I want to address here, and that is this resource that I've created. It's called the 5 C's of Successful Sales Conversations. It's available right on this page to download. If it's not on the page, then you can go to the hyperlink that's on here, this permissiontosell.com/5Cs. And this framework allows you to get really, really deep in connecting with somebody and outlining the exact challenges that they're having so you can build that relationship, build that connection, build that trust. And then you can make sales of products, $10,000, $20,000. Using this structure, I've actually closed sales up to $100,000. So make sure you download this. It's a cheat sheet. It's just a couple pages long. And it's going to give you some really great resources. So I encourage you to go through it, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it in the live call this week as well. Next, we want to facilitate the opportunity. And this is just a fancy way to make all my titles alliterate. So it all starts with F if you haven't noticed. But this is basically talking about the close. How do you make an offer? And so the reason we want to focus on facilitating the opportunity is because we want to avoid any weird shift in voice or in body language. So how many people have ever felt that when they're about to shift from giving value in the form of content to making an offer, there's actually a physical change in your body? Well, it's actually a pretty common thing. And it's part of it is because the mindset. We end up shifting from what we feel is a giving state. If we're giving value in a strategy session, maybe we're giving value over a webinar, something like that. But then we go to make an offer, and what we're doing is we're shifting to a state of receiving. We want to collect the cash, and that doesn't align very well with a lot of people. So we want to be very, very strategic on how we position this. And so when you facilitate the opportunity, we're actually going to have it so that you're focusing more on providing additional support. So it's not about making a sale. So no matter what program you have, what coaching process you have, whatever it is you want to sell, think of it as this is the next level for this person. Because bottom line is, if it isn't, then you're selling the wrong thing to the wrong person. So when you focus on just giving them additional support, it allows all these kind of scary feelings and thoughts to go away. You don't need to worry about how you're being perceived. You're just inviting them to the next level. If somebody's done great in their business, now they're ready to scale, and you have a program that will let them scale, great. Just invite them for additional support. Maybe they've gotten some support from you in the past, directly or virtually or digitally. If you invite them for additional support, you help them get to the next level. So that's really what this Facilitate the Opportunity is all about. So here's an example. So Dave, it sounds to me like you would love to achieve XYZ by December 31st. Is that correct? Dave's going to say, yes, of course. Okay, so based on what you've shared with me, I recommend our ABC program. It's going to give you the feature, so that benefit, and the feature, so that benefit, and the feature, so that benefit. How does that sound? And Dave's going to say, that's fantastic. Now, I want to address the features and benefits part. This is really, really important. The feature is the actual mechanical function that something has. So whether it's let's just say you're talking about online modalities, so you can access it from anywhere in the world. Well, great, that's a feature, right? So it's going to give you the online access you need, that's the feature, so that you can log in and do your training no matter where you are in the world, no matter what time of day it is. Okay, so that's the feature and the benefit. And you can go and do as many or as few of these as you need. I would encourage you to have at least one feature and one benefit listed, because it allows you to give a supporting push when you're moving in towards this close of the offer. Now, the next one is forfeit your assumptions. And so what does this mean? Well, when we start to make a sales offer, we get all these thoughts in our head. A lot of them are stories we tell ourselves. I've heard life coaches call these the gremlins, the negative voices. And you start to assume a lot of things. And so we want to avoid these because we want to ensure you're properly serving your prospect. We don't want you to make assumptions based on a couple questions you've asked and think, for example, that they can't afford your program, right? Set that aside. Don't worry about that right now. When pitch time comes, we're going to take a little bit of a different approach. And what happens is, if you decide that you know exactly what somebody can afford and you only pitch those products, again, one, you don't serve them properly, but two, you take away their ability to decide. So how would you feel if somebody had something that you were interested in, but somebody said, no, you can't have that, right? Or they don't even give you the ability to decide. They just take it away from you. Don't do that to your prospects. Okay, the other piece is you avoid leaving money on the table. So I want you to think about this. If you're working with somebody and you're thinking about pitching your signature program, it seems to make sense, but all of a sudden you hear them say, you know what, I really want to get these results really, really fast, like 3 or 4 weeks fast. Well, if you assume that they don't have money, you might just try to deter them away from that option. But if you don't assume that, then you can just offer. You can say, great, the investment for my one-on-one coaching services is $30,000 a year. And if you pay upfront, then you get a $5,000 discount. That's how you can make that offer without worrying about what happens next. Because if they say that's too expensive or no thanks, that's okay, right? That's all right. Now you've at least planted in their mind that your one-on-one services is $30,000. That's huge. It's going to make any lower level offer seem like a better deal, a better value. So that's another reason why that can work really well. So the rule that I live by when it comes to making offers, and the rule that I have my clients live by, is this: always offer the highest level of support that's appropriate to the client's situation. Now, I've shortened it on here just to make it easier for the slide. So it says, always offer the highest level of appropriate service. But if somebody wants to go further faster, start with the one-on-one. Let them know what the investment is. And then if they say, that's not going to fit, say, okay, well, we've got another level. It's not going to get you there quite as quickly, but these are the advantages that it has. This is the price, and you make the offer. And then you can even go down. I like to have 3 levels of options because you can even go down to a third one. And normally if somebody gets down to hearing about the third offer, they're normally going to buy the second one. They kind of end up in the middle. But if you don't go offering the higher level ones, you're never going to know, right? So prioritize that. So here's an example of a script you can use. The next opening for ABC course is on October 15th. There are only 3 spots left. The investment to join the program and to get on a path to, let's say, achieving your goals in 90 days or less, or whatever your promise is $197 per month. Or you can save 20% with a full pay option of $19.97. And there you just made an offer. And then I want you to just be quiet. Okay, just keep it quiet. Don't make a move. Don't say a word. Just kind of sit there in the silence and don't break it. Let them break it, because I promise they will eventually ask a question or bring up something if you don't say anything for long enough. The first time I ever did this, it was huge. I did pitch a $30,000 coaching package, and I sat there in silence for what felt like 18 minutes. It was probably more like 3 minutes, to be honest. When the prospect came back, his only question was, if I pay for 4 months up front, can I get a discount? And that is a good problem to have. But I never, ever would have gotten that opportunity if I had just assumed that the level of investment was too much for them. Finally, friends and family. So this is blatantly about asking for referrals. And I use the word blatantly, and maybe I shouldn't, because I don't want it to feel abrupt. I don't want it to feel like a bad thing. But we really want to do this because we want to avoid missing opportunities to serve others, right? Don't just leave somebody out in the cold because they happen to be related to an existing prospect. Like, that's not fair. So do what you can do to get in front of as many people as possible, because that's how you help as many people as possible. Also, it can be really good support and accountability for the person you just enrolled. So maybe they have a business partner or a friend or a colleague that also would love to go through the program. And if they can go through together, they're going to be holding each other accountable. So that can be a win-win. The implementation for this is simply to ask for the referral before the end of the call. And so this is the neat thing about a strategy session versus a discovery call. For a strategy session, I am happy at the end of the call if the client's happy or the prospect's happy. If they don't buy anything from there, it's okay, because they've still gotten value in the structure of the strategy session. So they've invested money, they've gotten value, they didn't ask for a refund, so I need to assume that they felt like they got at least the value they were looking for. And then even if they don't decide to move forward, they still had the positive experience, and they might have friends or family or colleagues or somebody that would benefit from that experience as well, because maybe just a strategy session will help people move forward. And that's great. If you got booked solid with $147 strategy session, your life would still be pretty decent. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Ask for those referrals, build up that list of prospects, and you're going to see a huge shift. So here's an example. Awesome, Dave. I'm super excited to have you join us in the ABC program. We found that people that have additional support from their friends, partners, or even spouses who take the program along with them tend to move even faster. Now, can you think of anyone else that you think would be a good fit for this program? Or you can say anyone else that I should reach out to talk about this. There's many ways that you can ask it, but ultimately this is the basic script that you'll want to think about using. So here's what we went through. The strategy session secrets are filter, which we can do with the financial or an application process, right? So some kind of way to make sure that you're spending your time with the right kind of people. 2 is frame for authority. So we want to talk about framing the call itself well in advance, and positioning you as the expert. Next, we frame the offer. So right at the first of the call, we talk about how if we feel like this is a good fit, we might make a recommendation, we might make an offer. And this way, nobody is shocked when they hear a price. The next step is focusing on the process. And again, this is going into the 5 C's of successful sales conversations. And you can get that on this page. So just go ahead and download it. No opt-in if you get it from the page that we're on right now. Now, next is facilitate the opportunity. This is closing the sale and shifting our thinking to go away from, hey, I want to make a sale, to, hey, I'm offering additional levels of support. Okay, we want to help people move forward. Next is forfeit your assumptions. Just remember this one line and write this down if you didn't earlier. Always, always, always offer the highest level of support that's appropriate for your prospect to ensure they're getting the best possible results. Really, really important. Don't take away their ability to choose. Just go with the highest level of support that makes sense based on where they're at. And finally, friends and family. Get those referrals. A business can run entirely on referrals if you have a steady enough flow. Referrals are going to convert normally 5 to 10 times higher than a regular lead. So keep that in mind. Referrals are really, really powerful. And now for the homework. Now, this week's homework's fairly simple. You're just going to choose between a discovery call and a strategy session. And what I mean by that is I want you to sit down and look at your business model and determine, based on the criteria that we talked about at the first of this call, whether your business is better suited for a discovery call or for a strategy session. So remember, discovery call is 15 to 30 minutes. It is really designed to be a filtering out process or seeing if somebody's a good fit. It works very well with clear ROIs on products or services, especially when it's money related. Whereas a strategy session is 60 minutes. The way I do it is it's paid in a risk-free fashion. And so people have the investment. And for 60 minutes, your focus is all about building out a strategy for them that they can walk away with and implement. So that's the key, but it gives you more time to connect. That 60 minutes is really, really valuable. So the second part of your homework is I want you to think about how you're going to implement each step. What do you need, or what's it going to look like script-wise to frame your offer and your strategy session for authority? Or how are you going to frame for the offer itself? So write down a little bit of a script that you're going to do. Obviously, it's not going to be bang on, and that's great. So map out this process and see, okay, what is the scripting in this particular area going to look like for my business? And that way, when you come to the call next week, we can actually look at some of the structures or templates you've created. I hope that makes sense. And if you do have any questions before our live call, feel free to post them in the Facebook group. And we'll be getting prepped for the next training session next week, which is all about managing your relationships. Cheers.